Let's demystify LGBTQ2S+. By the end of this video, you will have a clear understanding and we'll be able to talk about it freely like I do with the families I work with. My name is Dr. Ruben Gagaran. I'm a family psychiatrist, and this video is made for October 11th, the National Coming Out Day, to celebrate the courage it takes to tell the world who you really are despite the massive social ignorance. I admire the strength of those who has already come out and led the way for those who finds it difficult. I'm compelled to make this video to educate parents and others about it. I'll explain how using 3 dimensions you can understand almost everyone on LGBTQ2S plus continuum. As you may know, I work on inpatient unit and outpatient clinic, and you also might know that members of LGBTQ2S plus community are more likely to have psychiatric issues. So it is very important for us to discuss it. From time to time, I find myself privileged to help our youth coming out to their parents. So I know how difficult it might be for parents to understand what is going on. And based on my personal experience, I know that growing up in one-dimensional world, I had to fight a few layers of ignorance to get to the point where I am now. The 3 dimensions I'm going to mention you heard before, but there is one subtle point that makes a huge difference in understanding. I'm going to get to it in a second. The 3 dimensions I'm referring to, of course, it is gender identity, sexual orientation, and gender expression. The gender identity, that is mostly something that we are born with. We don't exactly know why, but for some reason, some people are born in a wrong body. So when taken to extreme, it is transgender. So transgender boy is someone who was born in female body, and transgender girl is someone who was born in a male body but identifies with a female gender. One way to understand that is through the pregnancy. Within 9 months, it's a very long time, hormonal changes happen, and if you think about it, where is our genitalia, where is our body forms? Well, the body forms in the first trimester of the pregnancy, but gender identity sits where? In our brain. When does the brain forms? In the last trimester of the pregnancy. So we have practically 6 months between forming genitalia and forming the brain. So if anything goes slightly off, then a person are born in a wrong body. Sexual orientation is also a complex issue that includes biology, psychology, and sociology. From the research, we know that about 30% of our sexuality is genetic, but also we know that there is a 70% of psychological and social issues that form our sexual orientation. And then we get to sexual expression that is probably mostly social and psychological issue. But I tell you what, I have 2 sons and 1 daughter, and that one daughter, she was different in a way how she was dressing and her preferences, even as young as 6 months or 1 year old. So some of it is for sure biological and we are born with. To understand the 3 dimensions, let's just talk about one first. Gender identity. Imagine a line, whereas on one side of the spectrum you have cisgender people, males and females, and on the other side of the line you have clearly transgender people, that is a male born in female body and females born in male bodies. And then you have infinite number of people in between these 2 poles. To understand the gender identity continuum, I like to use analogy with our height. So imagine if you take everyone in the world and divided them into short people and tall people. So when I look at my driver's license, it doesn't say if I'm short or tall, it says 6 feet. If I was 5 feet, it would say 5 feet. It wouldn't say that I'm shorter than 6 feet or like I'm short all of a sudden. But when it comes to the gender on the same document, it doesn't say that I'm, 6 feet gender identity. It just says male. So how come we take one identity, that is height, and divided it into inches and half an inch and centimeters and millimeters, so it goes indefinitely into smaller increments if you wanted to. But then we take gender identity and all of a sudden it has to be just 2, male and female. So, and similarly, how the height can be measured in millimeters, centimeters, inches, same thing happens with gender identity. You can divide it into cisgender and transgender. And you can name every single millimeter of the gender identity, and you would have many different gender identities. Since we don't have a scale like we use for our height, then we are left with these multiple categories, and sometimes it may get confusing. So the second dimension is, of course, sexual attraction. Again, same idea, it's a line. Maybe this time you can imagine that it's vertical, and on one end you have everyone who is heterosexual, and on the other end we have everyone who is homosexual, meaning that attracted to opposite gender and no options. And then again, we have indefinite number of everyone else in between these two poles. So in the middle, of course, would be bisexual, but there is also pansexual, asexual, and then you can divide it in so many different increments, again, like millimeters in height or maybe micrometers in height, so to describe each individual, and that is impossible. And third dimension is sexual expression. So on one end of that line, you have people who express themselves in typical way, so males wearing shorter hair and pants, suits, and females who wear longer hair, makeup, skirts, and then you have everyone in between. So on the opposite side of the spectrum, you see someone who would rather wear clothes that are typical for the other gender. That, of course, would be transgressors. But it is not socially acceptable, so a lot of these people have to hide in their basements, and they feel embarrassed for no good reason, really. To summarize it real quick, we have three dimensions: gender identity, sexual attraction, and sexual expression. And everyone would be somewhere on these continuums. And now we come to one subtle but very crucial point. See, these three dimensions, they are independent of each other. I'm going to repeat it, independent. And that's what I did not understand at first. I thought if I identify myself as transgender, then I would be wearing skirts and I would want to wear long hair. No, this is independent. I may identify myself male, I may be attracted to females, I just happen to like to wear makeup and dresses, and I feel really uncomfortable in suits and pants and short hair. So when I realize that these three dimensions, they're totally independent, that it helped me to understand at least one of my patients who is transgender male, was born in female body, and identifies himself as a male person, but he likes to wear female clothes. The parents were completely confused until I clearly explained this concept to them. That is why I said in the beginning of the video that you will be able to understand everyone on LGBTQ2S+ continuum when you realize that each of three dimensions is independent of each other, and it is a continuum with infinite number of possibilities in between two extremes. Before we wrap up, please have a courage to come out to your parents on this coming out day, and if you're a parent or professional, please be patient, because everyone on this continuum is different and they need individual approach. And most of all, remember that it doesn't matter how a person identifies themselves, they're still your kids. They are still the same people who you have loved for your entire life and you took care of. My name is Dr. Ruben Gagaran. Come back for more videos. Bye-bye.